Following is a fan-based lore series. The Halo lore series is owned by 343 Industries and Microsoft. Please support the official release. Welcome back! This is the Forerunner Halo lore series tech video. A lot of you asked for this in the last Halo lore series video I did, which was the end of talking about the story of the Forerunners and wrapping it up between the humans and the Forerunners. If you haven't watched those videos, I highly recommend you go and watch those videos. There's lots of cool little goodies and Easter eggs, and I have several other Halo lore series videos that explain everything up to this point in time. So if you've missed out on any of that, go back and check out those videos. They're all in a playlist. You could sit there and watch them all day. But this video is about Forerunner Technology. A lot of you guys requested this in the comments, so I decided, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do a Forerunner Technology video. This video is also going to plug some gaps and some holes that we didn't necessarily fill because they're iffy at best in terms of information. So I'll throw what the community thinks and the information that we have out there at you guys, my own personal opinions on some of those things, and you can decide where you stand from there on that. But without further ado, let's actually get into the technology of the Forerunners, what we can explain. This video is going to be in two parts. The first part is going to be more speculative and theoretical in terms of how we think Forerunner technology works. The second part is Forerunner technology that I was actually able to explain using real-world physics and maths and science. And we'll explain all that in a cumulative way that you can understand. So let's go ahead and jump right into Forerunner technology. Forerunners were on tier 1 level of technology. Other than the precursors and the humans, they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Although the precursors were of course more advanced, the impact of Forerunner technology is felt much more heavily through the entire galaxy. Some of the most significant pieces of technology they created dwarf large planets and are among the most impressive works. The technological marvels include the Halo rings, the ARC Installation 00, and the Micro Dyson Sphere Mark II, which is connected through a portal to the shield world Onyx. The planet Onyx itself demonstrates the ability to engineer on a grand scale. They also held an almost transcendent grasp of slipspace technology. Among their smaller achievements that had an impact in the Halo universe included Luminaries, Hardlight, and the Huragok. Hardlight is possibly one of the most important Forerunner creations. Their weapons, their architecture, and ships all used Hardlight to some capacity. But what is Hardlight? Some think it's an interplay between light and plasma that we don't completely understand yet, but I have some speculative theories as to how this is actually possible. Now, plasma is superheated gas that's controlled by magnets. So if you had precision magnets, large enough electromagnets that you can control precisely, you could create essentially plasma bubbles or waves or shields or projectile weaponry out of this plasma, and it would function just like most of the Hardlight technology. Especially on the weaponry side. Covenant weaponry is derived from Forerunner weaponry, and it's all plasma based. However, some believe that it has a lower power yield because they can't quite achieve the efficiency levels that the Forerunners had. However, hot plasma doesn't really fulfill the engineering and architectural side of Hardlight. Hardlight is used to create things from ships based off one power source to architectural engineering sites to dozens and dozens of things within the Halo universe. If it was hot plasma, it would essentially just melt through things. The other idea, which recently came along as a scientific discovery, is molecular light. This discovery was recently made at a university where they put rubidium metal into a vacuum chamber, hit it with lasers, and cooled it down to negative 450 degrees Fahrenheit. This apparently caused light photons and particles to move slow enough to actually bump into each other, forming light molecules. Now, as far as what we can do with this and the properties of it, we're not really sure, considering this is the first time we've ever seen this happen. But if these properties are anything like the abilities of Hardlight, this could very much be real-world Hardlight. Most people think, though, that this is going to be used in light crystals for quantum computers and extremely fast abilities to store information. There's also the possibility of cold plasma, which is essentially the reverse of plasma. It's a different kind of atomic reaction that takes place, but it still yields high energy yielding results. Plasma also works in the sense that we've seen several different colors of hard light, and there are several different colors of plasma depending on what gas you superheat. Just a few examples are tetrafluoromethane, which produces blue, silicon tetrafluoride, which is light blue, carbon tetrachloride is whitish green, and there's nitrogen, which is a diatomic particle, meaning it comes in pairs of 2, which is a red to yellow color. That's just a few examples of the gases that can use to produce different colors in plasma. Now let's move on to some of the more daunting things to try to explain: their planetary-sized construction. How they constructed such monstrosities as the Ark and all 7 Halo rings, we never really know, but it's easy to speculate that these constructions were most likely built in space by vast armies of Sentinels being overseen by AI and Forerunner builders. Once constructed in space, they were transported across the galaxy using Slipspace, and it's very obvious that they had a deep understanding of Slipspace technology. Within their vast amounts of constructions, Onyx is the most notable construction to look at, but perhaps not the most impressive. Onyx was an artificial planet created by the Forerunners with perfect living conditions for humans. Also known as Shield World 0006, Onyx first showed up in the Halo terminals, not the book Ghost of Onyx. A lot of people think that's where it came from, but it first showed up in the terminals, which spawned the idea of the Ghost of Onyx, the book. Onyx construction is quite odd and the only Forerunner construct to be made in this particular fashion. The planet has no tectonic plate activity, an unusually strong planetary magnetic field, and slightly higher than normal background radiation. It was later discovered that the planet Onyx was made entirely out of Sentinels. The Sentinels had transformed and bonded together to form a giant spherical crust which vegetation and terraforming of the land was able to be placed on. These Sentinels were dormant. Onyx was essentially hollow under the surface, but it had immense Sentinel production facilities under the northern pole region. At the center of Onyx was a large room, a core antechamber if you will, which contained a Slipspace Rift into a micro Dyson Sphere. Now how the construction for Onyx came about is a bit more obvious than others. The planet's made entirely out of Sentinels, so obviously they had massive Sentinel production facilities and created a lot of Sentinels of this particular type. However, it is notable that the Sentinels on Onyx are different from any of the other Sentinels that we've actually seen in the game. These Sentinels tend to be higher powered, much faster, adaptive in combat abilities, and were even able to speak human languages, first attempting to communicate to us in Latin, and then finally in English. They also seem to have more high-powered weaponry and adaptive shielding. These Sentinels were also shaped more like the monitors, such as Guilty Spark 343 found on Installation 00 from the first Halo game. On another note that kind of relates to their AIs, whether they were a collective intelligence of single AI, we aren't sure, but the Sentinels were advanced enough to, again, as I say, communicate eventually, which means they learn as a group. This gives us a bit of perspective into their AI workings. I believe the Sentinels were a collective AI intelligence, usually overheld by one of the Forerunners' more advanced Alien X. That would seem to make more sense to me, seeing as the Sentinels were originally designed to combat the Flood and quarantine them. It also makes sense for Onyx to be made entirely out of Sentinels as a defense against the Flood for the micro Dyson Sphere inside. Which brings us to the micro Dyson Sphere. What the hell is a micro Dyson Sphere? A mini British vacuum? A micro Dyson Sphere is a hypothetical megastructure that was originally described as a system of orbiting solar-powered satellites meant to completely encompass a star and capture its entire energy output. Dyson, the man who created the micro Dyson Sphere theory, of course, speculated that such structures would be the logical consequence of long-term survival in technological civilizations, and proposed that searching for evidence of existence of such structures might lead to the detection of other advanced intelligence extraterrestrial life without our own galaxy. Just to give you a point of reference as to how massive these things are and how much material they would make, if you want to go do the math on your own, feel free, but a 3-meter thick Dyson Sphere with an Earth orbit radius would require an estimated 2.12057,325 times 10 to the 23rd cubic meters of material. Damn. Since then, other variant designs involve building an artificial structure or a series of structures to encompass a star have been proposed in exploratory engineering or described in science fiction under the name of Dyson Sphere. Most fictional depictions of a Dyson Sphere describe a solid shell of matter enclosing a star, which is considered the least plausible variant of the idea. a type of ring world orbiting the sun is actually a much more plausible idea. While it is believed that some of these design variants are impractical, if not physically impossible, some of the designs do not require much major breakthroughs in our scientific understanding for their construction. So how in the hell would a star be inside an artificial planet? If there's a micro Dyson Sphere inside a planet, then that means there's probably a star too, right? Well, the keyword is micro. Inside the center of Onyx was, again, a Slipspace Rift. A Slipspace Rift is actually a tear in the galaxy into slipspace, the space between space, if that makes any sense. They exist multidimensionally, 4 or more dimensions, and we can see things that have more dimensions than we do. And for you to understand why or what I'm getting at, I'm gonna have to explain something that might freak you out a little bit. You see in 2 dimensions. No, you really do. You see in 2 dimensions. Cover one eye, and that eye is only seeing things 2-dimensionally. That's why you have no depth perception with one eye closed. You have the illusion of seeing in 3D because you have 2 reference points in 2D that your brain analyzes to create a 3-dimensional image of the world. Now, what if one eye could see in 3D? And if both eyes could see in 3D, you would have 2 reference points of 3-dimensional environments. Does that mean you could see in 4D? That is theoretically possible, but what's in the 4th dimension? Because we can't see 4-dimensionally, we can interact with it. And there could be things that can see 4-dimensionally, but we can't see them, because they also exist 4-dimensionally. It's like seeing the front and the back of an object at the same time. So there could very possibly be organisms that can see you, but you can't see them. Now, I explained 4D because somehow in my mind that explains that when you travel into slipspace replaces one of the dimensions you see in, and you can see the dimension you were seeing before. For instance, when you see 3D, you see dimension 1, 2, and 3, or X, Y, and Z. But in slipspace, you see dimensions 1, 2, and 4 instead of 3, or X, Y, and 4. This also inherently applies to matter taking up space. For instance, if it takes space up in 1, 2, and 3, it does not take up space in 1, 2, and 4, allowing you to house massive structures constructed inside slipspace in objects much smaller than themselves. In other words, it's bigger on the inside. Now, because Forerunners were masters of slipspace, it was believed that they could create extremely small slipspace portals to contain very large things, which stems into how they created their alien acts or their AI. To quote Dr. Halsey, creation of cross-linkages isn't the problem. Increased density of those links is what causes wave function collapse. Things get too tight. What if space weren't a limitation? Undoubtedly, the number of available connections would increase at a geometric rate. I illustrated this for Dr. Forster by drawing a 2D X with 4 links, and then showing him a 3D sketch with 6, and so on with increasing hyperdimensions. He said it was a novel fancy. What the good doctor failed to grasp is that although we are limited to 3 dimensions, in our 4th dimension space-time, there remains another space to exploit. Slipstream Space. A slipspace vessel could be enveloped in a quantum field to squeeze through the other higher dimensions, but outside that field one would have access to the full... I don't know what that word is. Current experimentation of any exotic matter in this higher dimensional space remains theoretical until technology is invented that enables survival in raw slipstream. Dr. Halsey's journal, everybody. This explains how Foreigners had extremely complex AIs in their suit that took up minimalistic space, which also brings us to the next point and a far more broad point, their suits and their biology. The suits could sustain a Forerunner for a long period of time without them needing any food whatsoever. These suits also allow the Foreigners to go completely without sleep. Now, as to why humans sleep, there's no real solid answer, but there are many theories, the most widely accepted being brain plasticity. Brain plasticity refers to the change in neural pathways and synapses, which are due to changes in behavior, environmental, and neural processes, as well as changing results from bodily injury. It's basically our brain's way of trying to fix all the bad things we do throughout the day. And because the Forerunner suits seem to do this for them, it would explain why they need no sleep, if that theory is correct. The Forerunners also seem to have no immune system, but again, the suit seals them off mostly from the outside environments and regulates all pathogens and contagions going in or out. Now, possibly the most notable thing the Forerunner biology had was their ability to catalog entire species and repopulate the entire galaxy. This was done by storing the genetic code of the DNA and RNA on silicon in perfect crystal formations, allowing massive amounts of information to be stored on something very small, but also very easy to read information off of that lasted an extremely long amount of time, such as an index. This allowed the genetic information to be stored on the Ark, and create organic material to form life out of raw materials such as minerals from the Ark, which would of course include carbon. This also gives reason for the Ark being such a massive structure. Each species in the galaxy had at least 2 pods, male and female, if not more, in which they were grown inside, then flung across a Rosen bridge to the closest designated halo ring and propelled onto the assigned planet for repopulation. With the halo rings in place and advanced AI overseeing all facilities, this process became completely automated, with no outside interaction needed once everything was built. There was a point when the galaxy was completely devoid of life, and that was the firing of the halo ring. Now, I'll cover the halo rings in the second half to the Forerunner Technology video, because there's still a lot of maths and theories I'm working on to explain them in a completely comprehensible way, or completely disprove them. But aside from that, there is a question many of you have been begging me to answer. Why didn't the Forerunners index themselves to be repopulated back into the galaxy? The definition of Forerunner is one that precedes, as in time, a predecessor, an ancestor, a forebear, one that comes before and indicates the approach of another, a harbinger. Something to be noted is that the Forerunners chose their name, the Forerunners, for themselves. Now, here is where some controversy of change in developers comes into play. The speculation, and supported with some evidence, but it's still a theory, is that Bungie had made the humans the direct descendants of the Forerunners, meaning that the Forerunners had in fact seeded themselves back into the galaxy. However, according to Halo 4 and the terminals from Halo CE Anniversary, both developed by 343 Industries, the humans and the Forerunners are very clearly 2 separate species. However, there is severe proof that the humans and the Forerunners were created by nearly identical strands of DNA. Another piece of contradicting evidence that would seem clear as day is this quote from Guilty Spark, which I absolutely love. And Guilty Spark 343, by the way, is the monitor on Installation 00, the first Halo ring you visit in Halo CE. "You are the child of my makers, inheritor of all they left behind. You are Forerunner." This is a major piece of evidence in the argument that the humans are the Forerunners. Guilty Spark coming right out and saying it. You are Forerunners. I mean, come on. What more do you freaking want? This leads to the idea that 343 screwed up when writing Halo 4, just to extend the storyline and create another game. It's a theory that not a lot of people like because, well, it's turning 343 into just another developer that wants more money and another title. However, they do seem to counteract this point with something interesting that many people didn't seem to pick up on in Halo 4 even after a year of its release. Almost a year of its release? Yeah, we're coming up on it. The Librarian engineered everything. Everything. The birth of John, the creation of the Spartan Project, the design of Cortana, the ideas of Dr. Halsey, they were all implanted into the human race and passed down through generations of ancestral genetic coding. If that doesn't give you an idea to how ingenious the Librarian was, I'm not really sure what will. Now, there are 2 theories as to why the Librarian did this, and both could be correct at the same time. The first theory is that they were Forerunners. The Librarian knew they were not the true inheritors of the mantle, and that the humans actually were. The other is that she wanted to take revenge on her husband, not only for snuffing out an entire race in the galaxy for his own pride and what he thought was best for his Forerunner civilization, or at least the pride of the Forerunner civilization, but for squashing her intelligence as nonsensical and ridiculous to try and save the galaxy. It is hard to believe that she would let such personal feelings get in the way of what she thought was the galaxy's greatest hope, but this was her entire life's work, literally, which applied to her title as Life Shaper. So, was the Forerunners not being populated back into the galaxy a giant plot hole missed by 343, or the librarian's choice to doom her entire race when her entire existence was dedicated to preserving life? If you have any questions that may have not been answered about Forerunner Technology, please leave them in the comments below for me. I will try to get to them as best as I can. And then, of course, the next video after that is the Halo Lore Inbox and Comments series, which is where I look at your inboxes and your comments and your questions, and I try to answer them if they don't pertain to the subject that we've recently discussed, or it might have been something that we'd overlooked, because I do tend to overlook a lot of things. So any questions that you have about anything Halo lore related, channel related, Halo related, period, or anything along those lines, questions, whatever, leave them in the comments down below for me. I always try to get back to them as much as I can. If I can't respond in the comments below, it's probably because it's going to be in the inbox and comments series. Now, after those 2 Halo lore videos, I'm going to take a break. I don't know how long this break is going to be, but we will definitely have another Halo lore video within the first 2 to 3 months of 2014. Part of the reason why I'm taking a break is because finals are creeping up on me for college. I'd like to enjoy the holidays. I'll be out of town for probably a week to 2 weeks or more, and then college starts back up again. And there's going to be a lot of things changing for me that I got to get settled before I decide to crack into another Halo lore series. Now, there are, of course, a few things I would appreciate if you guys did for me. Of course, go share this on your Facebook, your Twitter, your Tumblr, your MySpace, if you still use that, you loser. Any social networking, it's always appreciated. I just really want to get this out to more people as possible. And of course, if you want to keep up with us, we do have a Facebook, a Twitter, and a Twitch, which we live stream on, and we do a lot more things than just Halo lore, so it is, of course, appreciated if you come watch those and hang out with us. We toast a lot of lobbies, play a lot of games with a lot of people that are on the stream and that are on our Facebook, and we usually tell everybody, hey, we're doing this tonight, and anybody that wants to come is, of course, welcome. Not to mention that, but we are, of course, going to be doing midnight release streaming of a lot of the holiday games coming out. We will be doing a midnight release stream of Call of Duty Ghosts starting at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time AM, which is technically that Tuesday morning, like 30 minutes after it just became Tuesday, of Call of Duty. That'll be our midnight stream. I'll have Rage Rages with me. He's also on Twitter if you want to find him. And if you guys want to come play with us, that would be awesome. Everything you want is in the description down below. Click About and then click Show More, and it's all there for you. Anyway, guys, I'm Scout with 3 Guns Down. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you think about this and what else you'd like to see in the Halo lore series. I'll see you guys later. Cue the dubstep!
You're going to die.